the weight of gold. The aroma of freshly ground coffee and the faint, sweet scent of cinnamon hung heavy in the air of my apartment, a familiar comfort. Sundays were sacred. Mark, with his booming laugh and perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, would wrestle Daniel for the last croissant, a playful chaos that filled the small space. Liam, ever the quiet observer, would nurse his black coffee, offering a wry comment that cut through the noise. These were my brothers, not by blood, but by years forged in shared dreams, late-night coding sessions, and the unspoken pact of unconditional support. We'd started Nexus Innovations in my garage 5 years ago, a nascent tech startup fueled by ramen noodles and unshakable belief. I, Alex, was the architect of our code, the meticulous planner, the one who saw the logic in chaos. They were the fire, the charisma, the bold strategists. We were a unit, a perfectly balanced machine. Or so I believed. "Another round of negotiations with Apex, Alex," Mark said, his voice a low rumble over the clatter of cutlery. "You were brilliant. They'd practically rolled over." I smiled, a genuine, easy smile. "Just laid out the facts, Mark. Logic wins every time." Liam nodded, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "True. But it takes a certain kind of person to present those facts without making them feel like an attack. You have a knack for it." His words, a quiet affirmation, settled deep within me. This was it. This was family. This was success, built not just on ambition, but on trust, loyalty, and a shared vision. My ability to mediate, to find common ground, to always see the best in people, even in cutthroat business, was, to me, a strength. It was the gold standard by which I lived. The first cracks were imperceptible, like hairline fractures in polished glass. They began with small things. Missed calls that went unexplained. Inside jokes shared between Mark and Daniel that abruptly ceased when I entered the room. Liam, usually the first to dissect a new challenge with me, suddenly seemed preoccupied, his gaze distant. I chalked it up to stress. Nexus was booming. Our latest app was a runaway success, pushing us into the big leagues. More money, more pressure. It was only natural for people to be a little on edge. I, ever the problem solver, compensated. I worked longer hours, smoothing out technical glitches, handling difficult clients, ensuring that every piece of our intricate puzzle fit perfectly. My belief was simple. If I carried a heavier load, if I was always the steady hand, then the rough edges would eventually wear away. My dedication, my unwavering willingness to go the extra mile, was, in my mind, a testament to my commitment. The whispers, however, were growing. Not audible ones, but subtle shifts in energy. A client I'd worked hard to land suddenly seemed cold. A key investor, previously effusive, became strangely evasive. I dismissed it as market volatility. My optimism, my inherent belief in the good intentions of others, was a shield I wielded fiercely against any rising tide of doubt. It was Emily who, inadvertently, first pricked that shield. Emily, a brilliant data analyst I'd hired months ago, and a quiet, unassuming presence in the office. We shared a passion for complex algorithms and a quiet corner of the lunchroom. She once mentioned, offhand, that she'd overheard Daniel joking about Alex's bleeding heart, and how easy it was to get him to sign off on anything. The word struck me as odd, a faint dissonance in the harmonious hum of our company. Daniel could be boisterous but cruel? Never. I brushed it off. A misunderstanding. Just office banter. But the seed was planted. And soon, the subtle shifts turned into undeniable patterns. Projects I was spearheading were quietly reassigned. My input was increasingly sidelined in meetings. When I spoke, Mark would interrupt, or Daniel would offer a dismissive wave of his hand. It wasn't overt hostility, but a slow, calculated erosion of my authority, my presence, my very identity within the company I had helped build. The worst part was the insidious nature of it, the gaslighting. If I questioned a decision, Daniel would laugh. "Relax, Alex. You're overthinking it. Always so serious. Mark would clap me on the shoulder. Just trust us, buddy. We got this. And Liam, the quiet one, would meet my gaze, his eyes unreadable, then turn away. I started to feel isolated in my own company, a stranger in the house I had helped construct. My good nature, my willingness to always give the benefit of the doubt, was weaponized against me. They exploited my loyalty, my desire for harmony. They spoke of my generosity to investors while simultaneously cutting me out of key decisions. I was a puppet, dancing to a tune I couldn't hear. The true nature of their contempt, however, would only be revealed later. The casual cruelty of their private conversations, the way they twisted my earnestness into weakness, my willingness to compromise into naivety. He's too soft to fight, Mark had said once, a sneer evident in his voice. He'll just roll over. Daniel had chuckled. Yeah, he just wants everyone to be happy. Easy marks, those kinds. Liam, the quiet one, had never corrected them. This, I would learn, was the prelude to the grand betrayal. The moment of crushing realization hit me not as a single blow, but as a slow, agonizing suffocation. I was at a late-night conference, pitching a new security protocol, my brainchild, to a consortium of tech giants. I had worked on it for months, perfecting every line of code. But as I spoke, I noticed the blank stares, the subtle head shakes. One of the executives finally interrupted. Mr. Davies, your protocol is interesting, but Nexus Innovations has already presented a comprehensive, new security architecture. It's quite different from yours. My blood ran cold. Different? Impossible. I was the lead architect. I knew every line of code. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. The presentation ended in a blur. I stumbled out, heart pounding, a frantic energy coursing through my veins. Back at the hotel, I logged into the company's internal network, my fingers flying across the keyboard. It didn't take long. My access to the core server, which contained all our intellectual property, had been quietly downgraded. My latest protocol, my masterpiece, had been wiped from the shared drive, replaced by a version I didn't recognize, one bearing Liam's name as the primary author. A cold, primal scream died in my throat. It wasn't just sidelining. It wasn't just disrespect. This was a calculated, insidious theft. My heart shattered, not into pieces, but into dust. The pain was beyond rage. It was the agony of profound disillusionment. My best friends. My family. They had bitten the hand that fed them, not just once, but with a methodical, surgical precision. I didn't storm back, demanding answers. The Alex they knew, the emotional, trusting one, was dead. In his place, something colder, harder, began to coalesce. A quiet storm brewed within me. I was broken, yes, but not defeated. A single thought echoed in the emptiness. How did they know? How could they have planned this? It was Sarah again, a different Sarah now. Sarah Vance, the brilliant but notoriously private corporate lawyer I'd met at a legal tech conference months ago. We'd bonded over our shared disdain for corporate shortcuts and a mutual respect for meticulous preparation. I had no idea then how crucial she would become. She called me a week after the incident, her voice carefully modulated. Alex, are you all right? I heard some disturbing whispers from the Apex Consortium. Something about a surprise new protocol from Nexus? Her words were like a lifeline. Sarah, I said, my voice hoarse, I think I've been gutted. We met that evening, not at a trendy cafe, but in a discreet, old-school lounge tucked away in the financial district. I laid out everything, the gradual sidelining, the missing files, the sudden, new, protocol. Sarah listened, her sharp eyes missing nothing, her expression unreadable. When I finished, the silence hung heavy. Alex, she said finally, her voice firm, this isn't weakness they see in you. It's purity. A purity they can exploit. And they're not just exploiting it, they're trying to erase it. She then delivered the final, devastating blow. I was retained by Liam about 6 months ago. He wanted advice on restructuring intellectual property rights within a small, rapidly growing tech company. He outlined a scenario, a hypothetical, where a key contributor might need to be eased out without causing a fuss. He praised your coding, your dedication, but always ended with, "He's too much heart, you know? Too naive for the big leagues." My blood ran cold. Liam, the quiet observer, the one I had confided in, trusted implicitly. He was the architect of my undoing. He had used me, not for my code, but for my character. The unexpected ally had been there all along, silently charting my downfall. "So what do I do, Sarah?" I asked, the words hollow. "They've taken everything. My company, my reputation, my belief in everything." Sarah met my gaze, a flicker of something in her eyes that was more than professional empathy. It was a shared understanding, a quiet recognition of a deep, personal injury. "You don't fight fire with fire, Alex. You fight it with water. Clean, precise, overwhelming water." The next 6 months were a blur of cold, calculated precision. No grand confrontations, no furious texts. I became a ghost in my old life, moving silently, meticulously. My public appearances were minimal, my conversations brief and guarded. My former friends probably thought I was broken, licking my wounds in solitude. They had no idea I was quietly forging a new weapon. Sarah was my shadow, my strategist, my unwavering confidant. We gathered evidence, cross-referencing my original code with their stolen version, documenting every subtle change, every slight alteration that proved intellectual property theft. We consulted with financial experts, unearthing the subtle shifts in asset allocation that had begun months prior, designed to slowly siphon funds from my grasp. We found discrepancies in their claims to investors, blatant exaggerations of their roles, outright lies about the new developments. The emotional toll was immense. Every piece of evidence felt like a fresh stab wound. The memory of Liam's quiet smile, Daniel's boisterous camaraderie, Mark's reassuring hand, all turned to ash. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, the silence deafening, the bitterness a tangible weight in my chest. But then I would think of Sarah's quiet strength, her unwavering belief in justice, and I would pull myself back from the brink. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about dignity. It was about reclaiming the man they thought they could destroy. The day came, not with a bang, but with a series of quiet, devastating ripples. It began with a meticulously prepared, anonymous tip-off to a renowned investigative tech journalist known for exposing corporate malfeasance. The story broke, not as a sensational headline, but as a deeply researched exposé. The silent takeover, how a tech founder was ousted by his own partners. It detailed the intellectual property theft, the financial manipulations, the calculated psychological undermining. It cited anonymous, yet highly credible sources. The internet, ever hungry for drama, did the rest. The public outcry was immediate and furious. Investors began pulling out. Clients demanded answers. The carefully constructed facade of Nexus Innovations began to crumble under the weight of scrutiny. Then came the legal maneuvers. Not a lawsuit, not yet. First, a series of precisely timed, legally binding injunctions. A temporary restraining order on the new security protocol, citing potential intellectual property infringement. A freeze on specific company assets, pending an internal audit. Each document was delivered with quiet efficiency, signed by Sarah, whose reputation preceded her. Mark, Daniel, and Liam found themselves trapped in a web of their own making. Their investors were demanding answers, their clients were abandoning them, and their legal team was suddenly facing a mountain of irrefutable evidence. The public confrontation happened not in a courtroom, but in a live, televised industry panel discussion. The topic: ethics and innovation. I was invited as a last-minute replacement for a prominent figure who had fallen ill. Mark, Daniel, and Liam were already seated, their faces a mixture of strained bravado and barely concealed panic. They knew I was there. They just didn't know why. The moderator, a sharp, unblinking woman, introduced me. And joining us now, Mr. Alex Davies, co-founder of Nexus Innovations and a true visionary in the field. I took my seat, acknowledging the silent stares of my former friends. My expression was calm, composed, devoid of any anger or triumph. The questions began. They danced around the recent controversies, the rumors of internal strife. Mark mumbled about creative differences. Daniel blustered about competitive sabotage. Liam, typically quiet, offered carefully worded platitudes about unfortunate misunderstandings. Then, the moderator turned to me. Mr. Davies, there have been some serious allegations. As a founder, perhaps you could shed some light on the true nature of Nexus Innovations' recent innovations? I took a breath, letting the silence expand. My voice was clear, measured, betraying no emotion. Innovation, at its core, is about trust. Trust in your team, trust in your ideas, and trust in the integrity of the process. I paused, my gaze sweeping over Mark, Daniel, and Liam, holding each of them in a silent, unyielding stare. When that trust is systematically eroded, when intellectual property is misappropriated, when financial agreements are circumvented through deceit, and when a partner's good faith is mistaken for weakness and exploited for personal gain, well, then what you have isn't innovation. It's simply theft. I held up a slender, encrypted flash drive. All the documentation, all the evidence of my original designs, the altered code, the financial manipulations, the internal communications detailing the planned restructuring of my contributions, is on this drive. It's also with my legal team, the SEC, and the relevant authorities. The color drained from their faces. Liam, for the first time, looked genuinely shaken. Mark swallowed hard, his eyes darting frantically. Daniel's bluster evaporated, replaced by a desperate, hollow silence. I believed in loyalty. I continued, my voice gaining a quiet power. I believed in friendship. I gave everything to build Nexus. And they, in their arrogance, believed my kindness was a vulnerability they could exploit. They underestimated the quiet strength forged in genuine dedication. They thought they could simply take what was mine. But some things cannot be taken. They can only be earned. The moderator gasped. The audience was stunned. Mark, Daniel, and Liam sat frozen, caught in the headlights of their own undoing. The panel ended not with a discussion, but with an indictment. The legal battles that followed were swift and decisive. With the public opinion against them and the irrefutable evidence, they had no ground to stand on. Nexus Innovations, the company I had helped build, was ultimately restructured under new management, its soiled reputation slowly beginning to heal. My intellectual property was restored, my name cleared, my assets reclaimed. In the aftermath, Liam attempted to reach out. Alex, I'm sorry, he mumbled in a voicemail, his voice hoarse with defeat. I didn't think. I never thought you'd. I just thought you were soft. I never returned the call. My victory wasn't born of fury or a desire for their suffering. It was born of dignity, of reclaiming what was rightfully mine, not just financially, but morally. It was the quiet, profound satisfaction of seeing justice served, not through rage, but through unwavering, strategic resolve. I still have my morning coffee, still appreciate the quiet hum of the refrigerator. But now, when I look at the future, it's a clean slate, built not on past illusions, but on hard-won truth. Sarah is often by my side now, a quiet, unwavering presence. Her loyalty, born from a secret love, had been the unexpected anchor in my storm. And in her eyes, I see not weakness, but a strength that truly understands the weight of gold.